Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on the evolutions of Canada food safety system. We are honored to have you all with us today for this important and insightful event hosted by the Canada-ASEAN Business Council and its Agriculture and Agri-food Committee in partnership with Canada Indo-Pacific Agriculture and Agri-food Office or IPAAO. I am Rahma Anggraini, the Advocacy Manager at Canada-ASEAN Business Council, and I will be the MC for our webinar today. We are very excited to explore the evolutions of Canada food safety framework, hear from experts, and also engage in meaningful discussions about its future and global significance. And before we dive into today's agenda, I would like to take a moment to thank our distinguished speakers and panelists for joining us. Their expertise and perspective will be invaluable to our discussions today. And I would like to also remind everyone that our webinar today is recorded, and I would appreciate if you could mute your audio when you are not speaking. And in the latter part of the webinar, we will have Q&A session. So please feel free to note your questions if you have any and ask it during the Q&A sessions for our speakers later. And now, to kick off our event, I am pleased to welcome our first speaker, Greg Aidsness, the chair of the CABC Agriculture and Agri-food Committee. So Greg, over to you for your opening remarks.
Thank you, Rama, and good afternoon, everyone. As Rama mentioned, my name is Greg Aidsness, and I have the honor of serving as the chair of the Agriculture and Agri-food Committee of the Canada-ASEAN Business Council. On behalf of our council and committee, I warmly welcome you to today's webinar on the evolution of Canada's food safety system. We're particularly pleased to host this event in collaboration with Canada's Indo-Pacific Agriculture and Agri-food Office, and I'm delighted to see such a distinguished participation from across the ASEAN region. Food safety is not just a regulatory requirement, it's a shared responsibility that connects us all from farm to table. As global food systems grow increasingly complex, the standards and practices we establish today will shape the health and well-being of generations to come. Canada's approach to food safety has evolved into what many consider to be a global benchmark. Our system integrates cutting-edge science with comprehensive regulatory frameworks and seamless coordination across various levels of government. The Safe Food for Canadians Act serves as a cornerstone of this approach, emphasizing enhanced traceability throughout the supply chain, risk-based inspection systems that target resources where they're needed, preventive controls that stop problems before they arise, and rapid response capabilities when issues do arise. This integrated approach, where the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, Health Canada, and the Public Health Agency of Canada work in concert, ensures that food safety is maintained at every stage of the system from production to consumption. Today, we have the privilege of hearing from an expert from the Indo-Pacific Agriculture and Agri-food Office who will provide deeper insight into Canada's food safety system. Additionally, we'll hear perspectives from businesses across the region who have firsthand experience with Canadian food safety standards. Our session today really has three main objectives. First, to provide you with a comprehensive overview of Canada's food safety system. Second, to showcase innovations and best practices implemented by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. And finally, to create a platform for meaningful dialogue about how businesses have benefited from Canada's food safety system and to explore potential collaborations for the future. The relationship between Canada and ASEAN has never been more important. I think that you will find that based on the investment that the Government of Canada, as well as provincial government organizations. I am also the Managing Director of the Government of Saskatchewan's office here in Southeast Asia, and the resources that both the federal and provincial governments and other Canadian stakeholders have put into this region, I think, is a testament to how seriously we take our relationship. And so I think that, by strengthening our partnerships, particularly in this area, we can ensure not only the safety and sustainability of our food systems, but also the resilience of our supply chains and the connections between our regions. So I encourage all of you to participate in the discussion, share your experience, your wisdom, ask questions, and I think that's how we'll get the most out of today's session. So thank you very much for participating today, and I look forward to our discussion. Back to you, Rama.
Yes, thank you, Greg, for those opening comments. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Deidre Kelly, the Executive Director of Canada Indo-Pacific Agriculture and Agri-food Office, or IPAAO. Deidre, please go ahead with your remarks.
Thank you, Rama, for your very kind introduction. And thank you, Greg, for your opening remarks. I agree that the Government of Canada at the federal level and its provincial partners are definitely in sync when it comes to highlighting all of the existing collaboration and partnerships that exist between Canada and the Indo-Pacific region, but also in terms of highlighting the numerous opportunities to grow and strengthen those relationships. As part of telling the story of Canada's relationship with the region in the areas of agriculture and agri-food, as well as to highlight the story of Canadian agriculture, because much to our surprise, there is a lot that is unknown in the region about the quality of Canadian agriculture, the innovation in Canadian culture, and the breadth of the crops, the products, the solutions that Canada can offer. And so to do that, we partnered here at the Indo-Pacific Agriculture and Agri-food Office with the Agriculture Committee of the Canada-ASEAN Business Council and many other partners to really dive into some of the topics that we saw being of interest in the region, to promote a series of agriculture webinars for Canada-ASEAN Business Council members and members of government, industry, and academic stakeholders from across the Indo-Pacific region who are also interested in these topics. So for the past year, we have been looking at a number of issues ranging from sustainability in agriculture to unlocking opportunities in halal in the region, as well as looking at investment opportunities into Canada's agriculture and agri-food. And then the final topic of this pilot series is the evolution of the food safety system in Canada. And it's quite interesting because this topic was not originally on our work plan for this particular series. But as we have been engaging with partners throughout Southeast Asia, we have discovered that there is significant interest in the issue of food safety at all levels, from industry, from regulators, from government. And given that we do have a robust food safety system in Canada, we thought, we would share our experience as stakeholders are looking to strengthen their own food safety systems across the region. And because of the high levels of interest in this topic, we weren't even able to register all interested participants. I think we have 200 that registered. That was our max. So we'll definitely look at highlighting and duplicating this topic and opportunities for engagement as we move forward in developing our work plan this year. I would like to flag a few things. One, the reason that the Indo-Pacific Agriculture and Agri-food Office exists is because Canada launched an Indo-Pacific strategy in 2022, and that was to highlight, again, the strength of the relationship between Canada and partners in the Indo-Pacific in multiple areas, but also the need to grow and develop those relationships from the Canadian perspective. It's a very all-encompassing strategy. It covers everything from academic exchanges and research and development to security, people-to-people ties, and clearly the economy and economic relationships are a strong pillar of that relationship. And when we look at two-way trade between Canada and the region, by far the strongest area of collaboration is agriculture. And to build on that, there was a desire to have a specific resource that was dedicated to agriculture and agri-food issues. That is a highlight, a way to augment the existing activities that were being taken by our trade commissioner services and embassies, high commissions, and trade offices across the Indo-Pacific region. What is unique about the office is that it encompasses both technical experts, technical specialists in food, in plant, and in animal health issues from our regulatory agency, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, as well as market development and market access specialists from Canada's Agriculture and Agri-food Federal Ministry. So bringing together that strength of expertise, we have been able to work with private sector, with academic institutions and our embassies and diplomatic missions across the region in order to bolster activities, knowledge exchange, and technical capacity building efforts that were already underway. We've been very pleased to see the high level of interest in engaging with our office, and we look forward to continuing that collaboration, whether it be in terms of exploring technical issues such as prevention of African swine fever, to promoting Canadian agriculture and agri-food experts with our partners in the region. Last week, for example, we had an exchange with our Canada beef colleagues and a number of commercial partners to really showcase the quality of Canadian beef in the region and to encourage importers to diversify their supply of beef products or to build on what they're already using. So that's an example as well. So without further ado, because I really do want to get into the meat of this discussion, once again, in addition to thanking Greg and the Canada-ASEAN Business Council, I would like to thank our invited speakers for agreeing to participate today and giving the time, because I know you are all very busy people, but we do value tremendously your contributions. So we're delighted that you were able to prioritize this in your busy schedules. So amongst the speakers, we have Ray Ko, who is the president of Hightower, a very valued partner of ours in terms of showcasing and making available a number of high quality Canadian products in the region, as well as Pa Erwin Sudarma, who is the Deputy Director of Bogosari Flour Mills, another valued partner of Canada and who uses Canadian commodities. And the final speaker is Xiang Hitan, who is the Executive Director of CropLife Asia. And I think what will be very interesting in terms of their contributions is explaining how they have experienced Canada's food safety systems and how that factors into their decision making. Again, there is time built in for interaction, so would encourage all of you to either type in your questions or to raise your hand at the end of the sessions so that we can address any issues that we haven't done throughout the presentations. Again, if there is any interest in learning more about Canada's food safety system or any of our other collaborative efforts, please do not hesitate to reach out to Canada's Indo-Pacific Agriculture and Agri-food Office. The details will be shared in the chat. So without further ado, I will turn it back over to Rama, who can then introduce Penelope Kirsch, who is an expert in food safety under Canada's Indo-Pacific Agriculture and Agri-food Office. Thank you very much once again for taking the time and joining us. And we hope that this session is useful and interesting to all of you.
Thank you very much, Deidre, for your thoughtful remarks. So yeah, now let's delve deeper into Canada food safety regulatory system. And to guide us through this, we are joined by Penelope Kirsch, Agriculture Counselor at the Indo-Pacific Agriculture and Agri-food Office. So I will take a moment to introduce Penelope or Penny. So Penelope joined the Canadian Food Inspection Agency in 2008, and in Ottawa, she has worked as chief of the National Microbiological Monitoring Program and a technical risk assessor in the Office of Food Safety and Recalls. Since 2010, she has also contributed to the review and development of many guidelines as overseen by the Codex Committee of Food Hygiene. And prior to her work for the federal government, she was a chemical analyst, then the Quality Assurance Office for a private laboratory which specialized in pesticides residue analysis. In October 2023, Penelope was nominated as the Food Safety Technical Specialist Abroad for the Indo-Pacific Agriculture and Agri-food Office, and she sees this as an extension of the work she has done for Codex, helping developing countries strengthen their food safety system. And Penelope will provide a detailed presentations on the structure and evolutions of Canada food safety system. So Penny, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Rama. Just wanted to echo everybody's thanks for your time today. Everybody is very busy. There's lots going on around the world. So your participation, your attendance, your interest in today's session is very much appreciated. My name is Penelope Kirsch. I'm a food safety specialist with the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, now working within the Indo-Pacific Agriculture and Agri-food Office. And quickly, too, I'd like to thank all of the members of CABC and people here in the office who were effortless in organizing and advertising and promoting today's session, and for the speakers, the additional speakers that are here today as well. So, as was mentioned, Canada is a global leader in regulating food, animal, and plant health and safety. Even though I work for the Canadian Food Inspection Agency and we are the regulatory specialist in Canada, we don't focus specifically on food. We also oversee animal health and plant health. We work in mitigating risks towards food safety. That's our top priority. The health and safety in Canadians being the driving force behind the design and development of all of our agency's programs. We work in close collaboration with partners in industry, consumers, federal, provincial, municipal organizations, and we continue to work internationally towards protecting Canadians from preventable health risk health risks associated with food and zoonotic diseases. These are just a few of the main topics that I would like to cover in my 25-minute presentation today. They're interrelated, as you can appreciate. Food safety is a very integrated and complex system. It's heavily weighted and relies on legislation, strong legislation, clearly defined roles and responsibilities of all partners. I'd like to talk a bit about the modernization of tools and legislation and processes that the CFIA has undergone over the last 20 so years, which has led into our primary risk-based management decision processes, and also have a quick look at lessons learned from things that have happened in the past. So I'd just like to mention that Canadian Food Inspection Agency was created in April 1997. The federal government at that point decided to consolidate the delivery of all federal food safety, animal health, and plant health regulatory programs into one agency, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, and solidified that with the implementation of the Canadian Food Inspection Agency Act. By combining and integrating all of these inspection services, which were previously embedded in Agriculture and Agri-food Canada, the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, and Health Canada. The overall objective was to promote trade and commerce, to look at cost-effective ways to deliver services, as well as to provide a uniform and consistent approach to safety, quality standards, and risk-based inspections. Okay, so as I mentioned, mitigating risk to food safety is CFIA's highest priority, as well as the health and safety of Canadians. The current and future economic prosperity of Canadian agriculture, forestry sectors relies heavily on the health and stability of animal and plant resources. As such, we continually look to improve our program designs and delivery in the area of animal and plant health in order to minimize and manage risks. And this in turn feeds into our food safety system, taking an overall One Health approach. So CFIA was mandated or is mandated to excel as a science-based regulatory agency that's trusted and respected by Canadians and across the international community. We do take a leadership role internationally in various organizations such as Codex, FAO, and WOA. I'd just like to note that in an effort to protect the natural environment from invasive animal and plant diseases and pests, the CFIA also performs extensive work related to the protection of environmental biodiversity, including in the area of forestry. So CFIA has been given the scope of food, animal, plant health, and is also mandated in overseeing the safe practices from the farm level up into the point of consumption. So we do have presence within production, the processing, distribution, and at retail level. We aspire to prevent and manage food safety risks. Obviously, we protect plant resources from pest diseases and invasive species while looking to prevent and manage animal diseases as well as protect animal health and welfare. We contribute to consumer protection through open communication and transparency, and we work extensively with industry and international markets to facilitate market access globally. So the Canadian Food Inspection Agency is unique in that we report to two ministries. We report to the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Health. We're also responsible for providing reports up to the Parliament to justify our activities, the monies that are spent. We're held highly accountable for all of our actions. There, we are subjected to audits by the Office of the Auditor General and to integrity checks through the Office of Public Sector Integrity Commission. Every policy, program, and procedure developed and implemented by the agency is subject to rigorous review, and it's expected that final products and decisions will ultimately be scientifically defendable in court if needed. So with regards to legislation, I had indicated that the CFIA was created in 1997, and the foundational legislative support for CFIA for our powers and the powers and responsibilities of our inspectors lies within the Canadian Food Inspection Agency Act. In addition to that, we also have the Safe Food for Canadians Act, which was developed in 2012. And as risks to food, animal, and plant health have changed and continue to change globally, the agency has realized that it must continuously adapt and be more efficient and responsive while supporting Canada's ability to compete in the global market. Thus, the changes within the Safe Food for Canadians Act have provided um, the opportunity for innovation, flexibility, and a stronger response to food safety issues. And then at the basis here, we have the Agriculture and Agri-food Administrative Monetary Penalties Act. Uh, s- so CFIA, it gives CFIA the authority to issue administrative monetary penalties, which are part of our toolkit for compliance and enforcement activities. Um, which are used to encourage the compliance with federal, international legislation and regulations. And then in addition to that, we have a range of regulations. We have the Safe Food for Canadians regulations, we have various plant protection regulations and health of animal regulations, which I'm going to touch on briefly in the next slide. As I said, CFIA was created in 1997 and was a consolidation of activities which were spread across Department of Fisheries, Agriculture Canada, and Health Canada. And as such, those three agencies at that time, prior to CFIA, had their own acts and regulations that were used to support and enforce their activities. So when CFIA acquired all of these responsibilities back in 1997, they also inherited 14 sets of food acts and regulations, which were historically being used for these activities. They were very product specific and they were developed decades ago and served the purpose for which they were needed at that time. However, with the way things progressed over time, and with the fact that there was a dramatic increase in supply chain internationally back in the 70s and 80s, most of Canada's food originated from within Canada. But over recent decades, we've turned more and more to importing goods from throughout, from across the globe, and that led to increases and changes in risks to the food animal and plants as within Canada, and for the products which are being presented to Canadians consumers. So with the changes continuing and rapidly advancing, the agency realized it needed to continue to adapt and be efficient, more responsive. Um, and this took the form of consolidating all of those acts and regulations into the Safe Food Canadians Act and supporting regulations. That was back in 2012, I believe. So, the formation of the Safe Food for Canadians regulations provided a consistent and prevention focused food safety requirement that applies to all food industry wide. It has outcome based requirements, it's not non prescript, so it allows for players to be innovative, to develop uh, systems and controls which suit their needs and are also feasible and feasibly applied within their facility. This way, you're not comparing and having the same expectations or tools being used across large meat processing facilities as what can theoretically and can feasibly be implemented in smaller facilities. There are some major features which are implemented through the Safe Food for Canadian Act and regulation, namely traceability, which would help facilitate more efficient and effective recalls and investigations for food safety uh, concerns where they exist. There is more guidance for labeling and advertising, which is an attempt to reduce the amount of fraud which can be present on the labels, and also allows for more information being delivered to the consumers. Through the Safe Food of Canadians Act, we also implemented the requirement for all food manufacturers that produce food domestically, which are traded interprovincially or exported, and also for importers, which bring food into Canada, to have a Safe Food for Canadians license. And in order to obtain that license, the establishment has to have a preventative control system, preventative control plans, and traceability program in place. As mentioned, we have the Agriculture and Agri-food Administrative Monetary Penalties Act, which is a system of administrative monetary penalties for the enforcement of our acts and regulations. And that's just one of the tools that the agency is able to utilize in their compliance and enforcement activities. Uh, in addition to compliance and enforcement, I mean, we're trying very hard to work in a proactive, positive manner for sure. So we do look at promoting compliance. We have a lot of education and communication um, pamphlets and tools which are available on our website for industry and for consumers. And we work with industry to help them regain compliance or come back into compliance if there should be a deviation. So, with the consolidation of all of the acts and regulations into the Canadian Safe Food for Canadians acts and regulations, it was realized that with everything that the CFIA has to oversee, the vast amounts of food, the geographical distribution across Canada, the increase in imports of food, the increase in imports of ethnical foods, foods that had never been seen in Canada before, that there was a need to develop systems in order to manage our resources, because everybody knows none of us have enough resources to monitor, test, inspect everything that crosses our borders or moves within our countries. And that's where CFIA took a turn and looked at developing various science based risk management systems. And the point of this slide here is to show that risk management is a continuous cycle. It's not something you do as a one off. You look at your risks, you determine what has changed, what is coming down the pipe. You look at what consumers are struggling with the most, what industries start struggling with the most, what's causing the greatest risk to uh, the consumers, and you address that. Then you have to create a program. You have to look at tools or methods which can be used to address those issues, but are also feasible and very flexible. Then you have to assess, determine if it's been effective once it's been implemented, and you do your risk analysis. Is there anything changed? Has anything in the environment changed? Has anything internationally changed that we need to look at this program and revise our strategy? So, to further improve the delivery of its mandate, and in a world where risks and innovation and new technologies are constantly evolving and changing, um, CFIA is using this risk-based, science-based risk management approach to constantly be adaptive and be more efficient. And this approach is at the core of our everyday work. And I think we can all agree that being proactive is so much more desirable than being reactive in any given situation. Unfortunately, in the food safety realm, we do tend to predominantly uh, work in a reactive manner. However, the benefits of of putting in place preventative control measures to be more proactive is that it puts you in a position of control and it minimizes the occurrence and the severity of the consequences. And all of this is taken into consideration within our science-based risk management programs. Yes, I just want to emphasize here that prevention is worth its weight in gold. So this graph here illustrates the resources or the cost associated with uh, preventative systems is significantly less than what is required once you have an invasive species or a contaminated product, food product in the system. Then you have to look at correcting the system. You have to expend money, you have to put in human resources into that issue in order to identify, contain, rectify the problem. And in the end, there could also be further financial loss due to public opinion and consumer concern. So, when comparing operations in a preventative state versus reactive state, there is a significant increase in cost and resources once you move out of that preventative realm. And what's required to develop these science-based risk management decisions is a lot of intelligence, a lot of intel, a lot of information. It's risk intelligence, which feeds into this decision. It's information and data, which can come from a variety of sources, depending on the subject being analyzed. And it's from this management options for the risk are presented along with their strengths and potential consequences fed up the chain. Risk intelligence outcomes can include systematic environmental scanning processes with monthly reports. It can mean improving situational awareness. It can contribute to identifying and analyzing signals, and it can result in the production of specific risk intelligence reports. So what I'm trying to say here is that the risk intelligence that you gather, so the inputs, can lead to a variety of outcomes. The variety of outcomes that can be either uh, a broad spectrum of a specific program as to how you're going to decide, for example, on how often you're going to go into meat manufacturing facilities and inspect them on an annual basis. That's more of a broad spectrum versus a very specific food hazard commodity issue, um, which I'm going to talk about and touch base on in just a few slides here. Next slide, please. Just to highlight that CFIA does use various software tools to help with their analysis. Um, Gathering all that data makes it very difficult to analyze and interpret and condense and consolidate and be able to feed up in a very clear, understanding manner. Next slide, please. And these are some examples of the analytical tools, some of the risk-based resource management models that the Canadian Food Inspection Agency has developed over the past decade or so. We have our basic food, animal, plant risk assessment models. So that's very specific to food. For example, you can create a ranking of specific food hazard commodities to identify those which are of top concern, which require more resources, more attention. So, for example, listeria in ready to eat meats would require more attention and more rigor in testing and inspection versus canned fruits and vegetables. We've also used it, as I mentioned previously, to identify sampling, testing, inspection frequencies at the manufacturer level, so the establishment level. That model itself requires information based on the type of product that's being manufactured, the volume that's being manufactured, how the consumer handles the product, and any historical outbreaks, current historical outbreaks, or compliance issues within the industry. We've taken that same model for establishing risk within our establishments and are now applying that to importers. So we're going to be looking at importers who are bringing food into Canada, um, giving them a ranking to determine how to best utilize resources at our borders. And subsequent to that, we're now working on expanding from the importer to the food import risk explorer. And I'm going to talk about that in a little minute. And as it can also be used to look at the misdeclaration of import products that are being brought into Canada. So there's a variety of applications for such risk-based tools, and it just depends on your needs. Next slide. I'm going to actually go a little quickly here because it's taking a little bit longer. So we've got our risk assessment models. We've got our, next slide, please, our establishment in our importer. Um, okay, we could go next slide. That's good. So as I had mentioned that with regards to the fire, it's a new tool that's being used. It's using food hazard and country of origin level data. We're able to compare relative risks across different types of hazards, microbiological, chemical, allergens, and we're able to rank and prioritize risk to inform program design and work plans. So this feeds back into our daily work. This feeds back into our overarching programs as to how we're going to do things. And this requires continuous assessment, continuous information gathering, constantly looking for those signals that something has changed, and analysis and consultation in-house and with experts internationally and across Canada. I'm going to skip this because we're running short on time and there are other speakers. So what I just want to say is that our CFIA's risk-based approach, which is what we have evolved over time, is based on an integrated risk management framework. It's been designed as a primary tool to help us determine where the risks lie in order to optimize the use of our resources. It's a cyclical process. There's a constant evolution of these risk-based programs, a constant reassessment, comparison of what's deemed to be a risk to consumers. And it's looking at the cost effectiveness of our controls. But in addition to this, in addition to the risk-based programs, there are other ways in which the agency has advanced in order to keep up with the changing times, keep up with the technology, keep up with the emerging risks. And that's by providing resources to our inspectors. What do our inspectors need in order to stay up to date, in order to do their job effectively? What kind of guidance can we provide industry and to help them optimize their performance so that they are maintaining compliance and have access to those external markets, the international market? And this may, for the example with the inspector, it may be handheld devices or mobile tools. And just a couple more slides. Just hold with me. I've got 3 more slides. Sorry. So next slide, please. I just wanted to provide a couple of product-specific examples of risk-based actions that the agency has taken based on signals that were received. So in 2012, in following several outbreaks of cyclospora, which were associated with imported raspberries and blackberries from Guatemala, Canada has now implemented import restrictions from March until August for Guatemalan cultivated fresh raspberries. Cultivated raspberries can be imported into Canada from Guatemala from August to March. However, there is now a full year import restriction on wild raspberries and blackberries from Guatemala because of the risk associated with cyclospora. In 2019, in response to extensive illnesses associated with the consumption of frozen raw breaded chicken products, commonly known as chicken nuggets and the other breaded chicken products, raw breaded chicken products, it was realized that there are still a lot of consumers um, becoming sick with salmonellosis. Um, they were not Consumers were not being properly informed or did not realize the risk associated with these products. So in turn, we turned back to the industry and said, okay, if you're going to sell these products, there have to be sufficient controls put in place. So this could include processing the product to a log 7 reduction of salmonella prior to marketing, effectively making it ready to eat. You can implement a salmonella testing program, prove that your raw chicken mixture is free of salmonella and can be used in this manner. You can implement a hold and test program where you're holding your lots of the finished product and waiting for test results prior to releasing to the market. Or you can use a combination. So we all know about hurdle effects where you use multiple combinations. You have a testing program and you have very clear um, cooking instructions on the product, and you clearly identify the product as being not ready to eat. And then more recently, we implemented a hold and test at the border for enoki mushrooms, specifically from Korea and China, because this was in response to an actual multinational outbreak, which occurred across Canada and the US. It was identified that these were the sources of the illnesses and that there were very high levels of Listeria monocytogenes being detected in these products. Now, in order for these products from these countries to be marketed in Canada, they have to be held at the border upon arrival and tested for Listeria. And I just want to wrap up saying that no system is perfect. And I want to highlight that a lot of the evolution of the Canadian Food Inspection Agency was the result of a very unfortunate incident back in 2008, where there was a large outbreak associated with the presence of Listeria in deli meat, manufactured at one of our local manufacturers, Maple Leaf Foods. In the end, there was over 200 products that were potentially contaminated as they were processed through contaminated packaging lines. So the products were not contaminated during manufacturing or cooking, but it was after the cooking and during the packaging. Um, in the end, there were 57 confirmed illnesses, and I just want to highlight that confirmed illnesses means that there was actual clinical analysis. So there were blood and stool samples that confirmed that individual was contaminated, was infected by Listeria monocytogenes, the same strain that was in this deli meat. Um, and in actuality, there were probably hundreds of illnesses. Most people don't go to the hospital when they're sick. A lot of doctors don't send you for a stool sample when you present yourself with diarrhea and other gastrointestinal. So those are just a portion of the cases which are sent for clinical analysis. And in this case, it did result in 23 deaths. And the majority of the confirmed illnesses and deaths, unfortunately, were elderly people. There were huge consequences for this outbreak. There was an extensive recall. It cost the company over $20 million. There was a temporary closure of the plant. It had to undergo thorough sanitation, so it was shut down. It wasn't producing. And subsequent to that, all of their remaining employees, because they did end up laying off 250 of their employees. So the remaining 600 employees had to undergo extensive training for listeria and sanitary practices. There were also 4 class action lawsuits, which were settled for a total of $27 million. Following this outbreak, the government did request an independent investigation, which was led by Sheila Weatherhill, who was the CEO of Capital Health. And that was a 6-month project, gathering information, uh, pr- uh, taking in, sorry, what's the word? Interviewing people from industry and government. And in the end, the Weatherhill report came up with 57 recommendations as to how Canada could improve its system. Some of them are listed here. That's to say this happened in 2009. Subsequent to that, that's when the Canadian Food Inspection Agency looked um, more closely at risk-based processes and scientific-based supported risk management decisions and processes. We increased our capacity at meat processing and poultry processing facilities. We now have inspectors there at 24/7. We've increased our training for our inspectors. And as we've been discussing, there's been the implementation of numerous risk-based and proactive programs and tools within the agency. Next slide, please. I'm going to skip over that because I've gone way past my time. It was very quick, very high level. It's probably produced a gazillion questions, and I'm more than happy to have offline conversations with any of you and to provide more information. And again, I'd just like to thank you so much for your time today, and I will pass it over to our other speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Penny, for very comprehensive presentations. I think it was very complete information from the start and a lot of examples as well, and very insightful. So right now, I would invite our next speaker, Mr. Ray Ko, the president of Hightower Inc. Hightower Inc. has been a leading importer and distributor of frozen processed foods since 2002, and Hightower has also been actively importing meat and pork from Canada. And Mr. Ray Ko today will be sharing his testimonial on his experience and the importance of food safety in the industry. Mr. Ray, over to you.
Thank you, Rama. Thank you for inviting me to speak on my experience in importing Canadian products into the Philippines. Like Rama said, I'm an importer distributor of food products in the Philippines, and I source products from all over the world, be it Canada, United States, Australia, Europe, South America, China, and other countries as well. And I can say that I've been importing Canadian beef and pork for the past few years and very satisfied with it. When it comes to the sanitary and cleanliness of the product and traceability, there's nothing more that I can say about it, which is because it's very good. It's a very good product. And I can say firsthand because I visited the plants, not only the beef and pork plants, but also seafood plants. And I can see that they're one of the cleanest products in the world. So whenever I come to the market and visit clients over here, um, Canadian products is always top of mind. There are other factors, of course, for the clients to consider which product they would buy. Of course, these include the availability, the price, promotions. But when it comes to cleanliness and sanitary products, and also taste, Canadian products is always top of the list. And I'm happy to say that we're expanding the business, and I would want to eventually import more products from Canada. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ray, for your testimony. It's very interesting on your highlights on the cleanliness and also the quality of the Canadian beef and also pork. And next, I would like to invite Mr. Erwin or Bapak Erwin Sudarma, the Deputy Director of Bogasari Flour Mills. And Bogasari Flour Mills has also been actively importing wheat from Canada. So, and Pak Erwin will provide another perspective on how food safety plays a critical role on his supply chain as well. And so, Pak Erwin, we look forward to hearing from you. Please, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Rama. So, how is our meal today? How many of us had our sahur this morning or our breakfast? How we use the energy produced from the sahur? Let's think about the system of our meal, how the food system become a very important thing in our life. How important the food safety system in our industry. Indonesian wheat flour milling industry has started the journey since 1971. At that time, there was no food safety system at all. But now, it is a must. There is no plant can survive without the proper system. Let's have a look at the point in the center, which is I name it food safety hazard in wheat. Wheat is a grain. It's a natural fresh food of plant origin produced by nature, planted by the farmers. After the harvest, wheat handled by the grain terminal, delivered inside the container or bag in the vessel, in our case, birth at the port, arriving at the mill's factory, being cleaned, conditioned, and through the milling process, producing wheat flour, packed and distributed to the food industry, small and medium enterprises, bakery, noodle maker, biscuit, restaurant, and also direct to our home. It is quite a long journey from farm to plate, isn't it? What kind of hazard found in wheat? We can group the hazard in 4 areas. First is biological. As the wheat grow in open nature condition, the contamination from bacteria such as Salmonella, E. coli might happen. The second one, chemical. Fungus can grow, and if uncontrollable, it produces toxins such as ochratoxin, DON, ergot. There is also a risk of the chemical residue such as pesticide and toxic metals. The third one is physical, such as foreign material, wheat husk, steel, stones, and also insect. And the fourth one, last but not least, inside the wheat, we know there is a specific protein, it's an amino acid, gliadin and glutenin, called gluten, which only found in the wheat, which bring goodness to our meals, a nutrient, but for some of us might not good, an allergenic issue, celiac disease. Most of the hazard can be eliminated or minimized during the cleaning and milling process. Bacteria level will drop sharply and also all the physical hazard, all the forest material separated properly. Flour is a low water activity product and generally is a microbiologically safe, but still there is a risk of contamination. It is very important to underline that flour is a raw food. We can't eat raw flour. It has to be cooked. Let's look on the chemical hazard risk of wheat once there is. The milling process cannot eliminate such as toxin, pesticides, chemical. There is also limits on the milling process to handle. If the amount is too high, how and what we can do? Thanks to our government, there are several regulations which we can see on the right side of the screen. Food Safety Hazard Control. We have our Indonesian national standard called SNI 3751 2018 and also the regulation of fresh food of plant origin, controlling the hazard, biological, chemical, and other contamination, and also our phytosanitary requirements, controlling hazard in the wheat. We have a good food safety system. In this event, I would like to thanks to Canada as one of Indonesian main wheat sources. Though the natural moisture is high, but have an excellent implemented food safety regulatory system. All the wheat coming from Canada always meet our standard, not only in terms of quality, but also more important, fulfilled our food safety regulatory requirements. The recognition certificate has shown that good agriculture practices and good handling practices implemented well in the supply chain to our ports. Last point I would like to share is the dynamic of the food safety system, the cycle. As we know, there is always changing in every moment. Climate has changed, new hazard identified, new risks, and new challenges. Every country might have different situation, different approaches and solutions. Thanks to our IQA, Indonesian Quarantine Authority, and CFIA, who had just signed protocol agreement on food safety of wheat last December, is mitigating the hazard risk, improving food safety factor of incoming wheat from Canada. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Erwin, for the thoughtful testimonial. Actually, I would just like to point out one fun fact that Canada is now the second biggest source of wheat for Indonesia. And it's also thanks to the good quality of Canada's wheat, and also thanks to Pak Erwin and also Bagasari support for continuing the trust to Canada's wheat products. And so next, now we have the privilege of hearing from Xiang Hee Tan, the Executive Director of CropLife Asia. And Xiang-Hee will be sharing his perspective on how food safety regulations intersects with the agricultural innovations, and also how the collaborations will happen across Canada and also ASEAN. Xiang-Hee, please share your thoughts.
Thank you, Ibu. Again, thank you, Ibu Rama, Greg, and Deirdre for opening this session. And really thank you, Penelope, for your great presentation. So for us, I work for a trade association representing the plant science industry. I'm not a direct purchaser of Canadian product, but I would like to share that the impact of Canadian regulation is much more widely felt across Asia Pacific, if not ASEAN, because Canada plays a vital role in advancing food safety, sustainability, and innovation in the region. Let me share with you more. Food security is one of the greatest challenges in our time, and ensuring safe, nutritious, sustainable food production requires strong collaboration between government, industry, and farmers. Canada has long been a trusted partner in ASEAN agriculture landscape, supporting efforts to enhance food safety standards. Regulatory, bilateral, Penelope, you spoke about how Canada's food safety standards has increased tremendously, but equally, the bilateral building regulatory resiliency, building regulatory capacity, benchmarking against science-based is very, very important. And that builds the mutuality of our export potential into the Asian market also. So by introducing cutting-edge agriculture technology, promoting climate-smart, resilient farming practices, and then Canada's contribution to ASEAN food safety and sustainability in 2022, 2023, when Canada played a critical role in ASEAN Safe and Nutritious Food Alliance, that we bring together the conversation and the topics running up to COP27 and COP28 in a series co-organized by CropLife Asia and CABC and other international partners. Through this dialogue, we witness firsthand Canada's commitment to strengthening food system, reducing climate risk, ensuring regulatory harmonization to support ASEAN food security goals. And again, what we discussed here is super important. And in addition, in 2024, last year, equally, we partnered with Canada on 2024 Road to Secure Sustainable Food System, bringing collaborative multi-stakeholders event in Kuala Lumpur and also Jakarta. From training smallholders, farmers on food safety standard to enhancing regulatory framework for risk-based assessment, Canada's support has been instrumental in helping ASEAN adopting science-based approaches to agriculture safety and sustainability. In Thailand and Vietnam, recent engagement have reinforced the need for climate-smart agriculture, responsible technology use, and regulatory alignment to support global trade and food safety. And this, in long term, will support Canada's product exporting into and gaining market access into ASEAN. So looking ahead, Canada's leadership in science-based food safety regulation, digital agriculture, market-driven sustainability initiative will continue to be part of cornerstone of ASEAN food security strategy. As climate changes intensify, we must build on strong collaboration, strengthening regulatory convergence to ensure safe food trade across ASEAN and Canada, scaling up farmer capability and capacity building program to help smallholder adopt innovative crop protection and biopesticide solution, enhancing digital and data-driven solution to improve traceability, risk, and management. So at CropLife Asia, we remain committed to working along crop in Canada, ASEAN government, and industrial stakeholders to ensure that resilient, science-driven food system for the region. Again, with that, Ibu, thank you very much for us to give us the opportunity to work together to continue to build, foster knowledge exchange and knowledge investment innovation so that we can ensure the future of farmers, consumers have access to safe and sustainable food, agriculture, increasing agriculture trade between Canada and ASEAN flourishes. Thank you again for your great support.
Thank you, Xianghe, for your testimonial as well. And thank you for all speakers again for such insightful and thought-provoking presentation and also testimonials. I know that we have exceeded the time for the webinar, but I would like to still open the floor for questions and discussions, maybe just for 1-2 questions if there is any. So this is the opportunity for you to ask any questions to our speakers about their presentations and also their testimonials. Please feel free to type your questions in the chat box in this Zoom webinar, or you may also raise your hand so I could get you to actually ask your questions. Do we have anyone who would like to ask their questions? Or maybe everyone is a bit shy, or the presentation is already very comprehensive. I actually already received some emails asking me for the copy of this webinar. So that's like how insightful this webinar has been. And yeah, if there is no questions, since we already exceeds our time for this webinar, we could close, but we will publish this webinar later in our YouTube channel, and we will also share the links to all registered participants here. So if you do have any other questions later after this webinar, you could still email us, email me, email the CABC, and you could also contact us through our social media in LinkedIn. We will surely connect your questions with the speakers today and ensure that your questions is addressed. Yeah, I think that's all so far. Once again, thank you very much for all the speakers and to all audience who have been sticking with us for the past 1 hour. And we hope you found today's webinar insightful and valuable. And before we close, I would like to remind everyone that the Canada-ASEAN Business Council and the Indo-Pacific Agriculture and Agri-food Office are committed to continuing these conversations and fostering stronger collaborations in the agriculture and agri-food sector. We hope this webinar today has sparked new ideas, connections, and opportunities for future growth in the food safety space. On behalf of CABC, IPAAO, and all of our partners, thank you for your participations, and we wish you all continued success in your endeavors. Have a great afternoon, everyone.